Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a daily podcast in which we dig in deep to analyze the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 1 minute at a time. I'm Andy Nelson from thenextreel.com.
And I'm Pete Wright, also from The Next Reel.
We are at the beginning of the MCU, looking at Jon Favreau's 2008 film Iron Man. We're today talking about Minute 73. On today's show, the minute starts with Tony trying hard to remember Christine's name and failing, and ends with Tony arguing with Obi about his naivete.
Well, that's what I was talking about yesterday, about the complicated tapestry of reasons Tony doesn't want to talk to Miss Bibb here. Because mostly he can't, he sees her, he knows she's a reporter, he remembers that there was some sort of event, and when I say event, I mean that in heavy romantic air quotes, and also he can't remember her name. And I think all of those things are just written all across Tony's face here, and I love it.
It is a great moment. All of this works so nicely. The way that he plays it, the way that she plays it, the two of them together, I think, just have some great on-screen. I want to call it chemistry. It's not necessarily like the romantic kind, but it's definitely like the reporter and the person that she's pursuing for information. I think that they play it really nicely. You know, you get lines like, "Can I get a reaction from you?"
That's right. How's Panic?
Panic.
It's such a good beat. I think they've had great chemistry, just on screen chemistry, since the first scene that we talked about, where she meets him at the car. Obviously, we have other events between them, their brief love scene, but generally when these two are on screen, it's just really delightful fireworks.
Yes. Leslie Bibb, Pete, don't look at IMDb. We're going to do the IMDb game for her.
With me alone?
Yes. You alone.
Okay.
The IMDb game, the 4 films that IMDb says she is known for, what do you think they are?
The problem is, Andy, I can only think of 2. Well, 3, because she was in Iron Man 2.
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
So
yeah, she was.
All right. So I've got 2. Oh, do you know what she was in? You probably know this because you're looking at IMDb. I think that Talladega Nights is going to be on there. She was fantastic.
Okay.
Is that one of them?
What, I'm not telling you. You got to give me 4, and then I'll tell you if you're right or wrong.
Okay. I don't know. Oh, okay. We just saw her in the Tag thing. She was in Tag. How's that?
She was in Tag. She was fantastic in Tag.
Yes.
I loved that movie.
It was great.
So you're saying Iron Man 2, Talladega Nights, and Tag.
And Tag, yes.
Well, you got 3 of the 4, so that's pretty impressive.
Sweet. Which ones?
Iron Man 2 are the first 2. And then Law Abiding Citizen with Gerard Butler and Jamie Foxx is number 3.
What?
And Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby is number 4.
Law Abiding Citizen?
Yeah, that was one of those Gerard Butler movies that, he kind of hit a streak of just doing a lot of low-end, although it actually got pretty good reviews, but it looked like a low-end crime thriller.
Yeah.
Taking justice into his own hands.
It all ended in Geostorm for me, Andy. I don't know if you remember. I had feelings. Anyway.
Yes, you did. Oh, yes. But Leslie Bibb, she's great.
That's fantastic.
What's important here is I think this is a big moment because she gives him these photos, right, which mysteriously appear. You notice in the last minute, she didn't walk over with photos. They weren't laying on the bar. I don't know where she pulls these photos out from, but all of a sudden she kind of whips these photos out and she happens to have them.
Well, she has her little purse thing on her shoulder. I'm just assuming she's got it's a little tiny strappy purse.
It is a very tiny strappy purse.
That's probably exactly the size of these photos. It's a bag of holding. That's what it is. It's a magical D&D bag of holding.
I love that. Yes, she's walking over with her little Harry Potter bag. So
she's going to pull a Hobbit out next. It's just pictures. Yeah,
this is just going all over the place.
Elijah Wood's in there.
Hobbits and Harry Potter and Marvel. It's great.
Don't forget Gerard Depardieu.
And Gerard Depardieu. You mean Gerard Butler?
I mean Butler. I have feelings about Depardieu too.
Depardieu in there too.
Did you see that green card? Wow.
Wow. Okay. So yes, she does have a very slim strapped bag or something, I guess, that she's carrying, because you can see it over her shoulder, but you never see the bag. It's like this mystery bag that apparently is what she's carrying these photos in. That's the only obvious explanation, because otherwise they just mysteriously appear. It's very funny. It's edited in such a way where you never see the bag and you never see her pull them out of the bag. So all of a sudden it just cuts and there's a wide shot and
she has magical pictures in her hands. Yeah, right. And they're pictures of Stark weapons. And that is an inciting incident for Tony.
Not just, and I mean, I think that's a huge part of it, but I think the other huge part of it is that it actually is Gulmira, which he now has a connection to. I mean, she says it's a town called Gulmira. Ever heard of it? We know that he has, because this is where Yinsen is from. And all of a sudden, there is this direct connection that he has to the images. And we see Stark weapons, Ten Rings terrorists, including Abu, who pops up in one of the pictures, everybody's favorite baddie. And they have these weapons, and they are taking this town of Gulmira. They're killing horses. It is a terrible time in this town. It's a call to action. This is the hero's call that Tony's been waiting for. Up to this point, I think it's really interesting. He has been building this suit, but why? Like, he's been doing it, it seems like, kind of for fun, to see if he can, because he built something in the cave and now he's just trying to do it better. But all he's been doing is just flying and seeing what kind of cool stuff he can do. There's not been this call to action. Now he has it.
I guess I would submit you. So you don't think that he is building the suit with the intention of eventually going out and, destroying or retaking the weapons that are in ill-gotten hands?
I don't think so. But, well, I mean, according to him and according to his expectations of what is going on with his company, he told them, we're not going to do it anymore. And I think he thinks that they're actually not. And because then he kind of goes into lock myself in the basement mode and build a robot suit. And I think that I think that he had more trust in his company and kind of a more naive belief that things were okay. And here he is just, he even goes to Rhodey earlier in the film, not to say anything like, I want to get those guys. He says kind of excitedly, like, hey, I'm building something. It's going to be big and exciting and I want to get you in on it.
Yeah.
And Rhodey's just like, oh, good. I'm glad to hear that you're back into it. Your speech was kind of made us all nervous. And Tony's like, no, it's not that. And Rhodey's like, you got to get your head in the game, man. And that whole thing. I because of that, I really don't think that he had any intentions of doing it, any sort of militaristic actions.
I can see that. I feel like after his escape from the cave and, in the first suit, that there was a sense of, look what I could do with this technology. Like, someday I'm going to get this right. And there's a potential that I could, not only change the tide of my company, but I could also right a grand wrong. And this minute and the sort of, I guess, 2 subsequent minutes, we get a series of major revelations for Tony. This is the first one, right? That these weapons and these people that he knows, and let's not disregard Abu's stroll. He is a cocky, happy guy in this picture. That these guys are still actively doing all of the stuff that Tony thought he fixed in this area, right?
Yeah.
These are the same people, and he recognizes this is his call to action, and then that action is reinforced over the subsequent minutes. And I think that's really important because it changes, in my mind, it changes from wouldn't it be great if I could use this suit for this kind of activity, to, I know I now have to figure out a way to take action here. I didn't think it was going to happen this soon. I didn't think this is what I was going to do immediately, but I have to take action.
I think it works really nicely to kind of turn things here. Plus, they do it in a really smart way. We're not expecting this conversation to happen here. It turns into this nice turn right here that I think works really nicely. I really love the way that it plays out here. And I love the strength of the transition that Tony takes.
Yeah, I do too. It's a jump 'em at the party moment, and it really works to make this party not just a useful tool for the romantic narrative between Tony and Pepper, but to actually turn the film in a really dramatic, for a film that's been as patient as it is, in a really dramatic fashion.
Right. Before we move outside, I was just thinking about, two things. I was just thinking about her name and that he doesn't remember it. Her name's Christine, and he calls her Carrie. And I can't help but wonder if there's like some underlying Stephen King joke that they're playing here. It's like two titles of Stephen King books named after females.
Right. That's a really nice touch. I choose to believe that that's their intention from this point forward.
I think so too. Yeah. In fact, I want to believe that Tony knows her name is Christine and purposely does this strange Stephen King reference.
I was listening to a fantastic podcast that I only just discovered. Have you listened to to Off Camera with Sam Jones?
Nope.
Sam Jones, a cinematographer and photographer, and he has a lot of incredible friends. And he does these wonderful, introspective, long format interviews with, just one actor, one performer, one musician after another. And his fifth episode, he's now on 177. His fifth episode was like an hour and a half conversation with Robert Downey Jr. And I tell you that because Robert Downey Jr. told this story about his experience in Iron Man and in other movies where, talking about his level of prep that he goes into, for these movies. And sometimes he says, I drill down and I go in, I always know every line. I'm completely off book. I can do the thing backward and forward. And I absolutely know inside and out every angle and every other actor's lines. I have it inside and out. And then, I've been doing this a long time, and there comes a time where sometimes I go on and I really don't, and I'm just relying on who I am and the skills that I picked up along the way, and I have a bug in my ear and I actually have somebody reading me the lines that I'm about to say. So when I think about that story, I tell that whole story because I kind of imagine there's somebody doing an Anchorman gag on him in his ear. Wouldn't it be fantastic if somebody says Carrie and he knows it's Christine, he's supposed to say Christine, and they just goofed him? I think that would be really great.
That makes me think of Bruce Almighty.
That's exactly right. Yep. That's a better reference.
That's so funny. Yeah, I haven't heard of that podcast. I'm going to have to check it out.
Oh, it's fantastic. That and Dax Shepard's podcasts are really great.
And the guy who is in Jessica Jones has a new podcast too. What's that one?
I don't know what you're talking about. Curses.
Yeah, the Doctor Who guy? What's his name?
Oh, David Tennant.
Yeah, it's like David Tennant talks with ... or something like that. Like that's the name of the podcast. And again, it's talking with all of his famous friends.
Yeah,
these are who we're now competing with.
Yeah.
It's not bad enough. All these hundreds of other Movies by Minutes podcasts and other movie podcasts, but now we're competing against all these
against David Tennant and Dax Shepard, and here it is. David Tennant does a podcast with Jodie Whittaker, right. Whoopi Goldberg, Olivia Colman. Right. Yeah. You're right.
Thanks.
I'm done. Let's hang up the towel. But does he do it 1 minute at a time? I think not.
The last thing I wanted to say in this moment, in this scene before we head outside, there is, I mentioned earlier, the tip that Tony leaves in the cup.
Yes.
Earlier.
What did you mean to say about that?
There's a disappearing tip here. So when we cut to the wider shot at about 26 seconds in, it's not the money that he put in there anymore.
You're right. So, it changes 8 seconds. It's still his money.
Yeah.
18 seconds. It's changed.
It's still his money.
Wow.
Well,
no. It's a different angle. It's changed. And then it's like people are standing, but it's the redhead. She's taking the money. She's behind RDJ and she's taking the money. Right. You're right. It's just gone.
Yeah. So now this is an interesting transition that we have here. In the way that the film plays, he says, well, I'm not my company. And next thing we see, it cuts to him talking to Obadiah, who clearly has never gone inside. He's been outside standing on the steps talking to the press the whole time or something. I don't know why he's still outside. But anyway, It cuts to Tony, and Obadiah pushes a photographer away so that they can have this conversation. And it's the start of a conversation, and we'll finish it next time. But it's this nice little moment that the two of them have here. What's interesting is that the way that it's scripted, when Christine shows these photos to Tony, he's pretty shocked, and he's like, I didn't prove this shipment. She says, well, your company did. Tony says, come with me. He leaves, making a beeline for exterior Disney concert hall. Minutes later, night. Tony strides out to the red carpet paparazzi, and then he starts talking. Tony, I made some promises I'm not going to be able to keep. I suggest you pull all your money out of Stark Industries immediately. Obadiah is suddenly there, steering Tony up the entrance to the stairs. Obadiah, is this like a tick for you? Whenever you have a feeling, you start going to all the people who don't trust you, who don't protect you, they're going to put a spin on everything you say. Tony, wait a minute. I got to ask you something. I'm dead serious about this. I'm not kidding. Am I losing my mind, or is Pepper really cute? Do you think she's attractive and interesting, or is it just that her hair is down? I've been out of the game for a while.
Wow.
Are you out of your mind? You're messing with the guys in the rooms. We're talking about billion-dollar interest, the world order. Tony, I'm not worried about that right now. Obadiah, you should be. You'll disappear. I can't protect you against people like that. Then this is where I think we're cutting in. The paparazzi has snuck on them, snapping photos. Obadiah, do you mind? And that's where we get into the scene. What an odd little moment we have here.
That's very strange.
Yeah. And obviously they shot it because if you look real carefully, as soon as we cut outside, we've got the two of them. Obadiah kind of pushes the camera away, but when they start going up the stairs and the camera kind of spins around them, as soon as it cuts on Obadiah's back, you see on the very left edge of frame, you see Christine standing there.
Yes. She followed him out.
Yeah.
That's a very strange thing to miss. I don't know. I think it feels like it's in character, and they might have just cut it, I don't know, for time, efficiency, didn't need the bit. I don't like the cut. Can we talk about the cut editing by Dan Liebenthal? I feel like the cut is a jarring change of scenery, and it puts Tony's head in exactly the same place it is in the immediate frame before, turned at a slightly off angle from camera, but it's the same orientation, same sort of physical size, and I find it a jarring transition.
Interesting. I actually like it. I like that he's in the same spot because I feel like my eyes are already on him. I'm looking in his eyes, and then when we cut, I'm still looking at him. Granted, I'm not looking at his eyes anymore. I'm now looking at his jaw and his nostril. But, still.
And her head, the back of her blonde head has been replaced by Obi's bald head. It's kind of the same shape and color tone. And anyway, I find it a jarring, kind of out of context switch. I needed more. Maybe something as simple as a Star Wars wipe that we kind of like just to change our context. But that's interesting.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, but largely I'm glad that they cut it. And honestly, I don't mind the conversation so much, except for the random bit that he has where all of a sudden he's like talking about Pepper and, I think she's really hot. I think she's into me. It's like, who are they writing here? I feel like this is one of the writers who just didn't have a sense of Tony and was just writing him as like he's this flibber to gibbet.
Yeah.
He's all over the place.
Right.
And it's a terrible bit to have him go off on this random tangent here. The rest of it's fine, but that part, ooey.
Yeah, I that doesn't work. It's sitcom comedy, right? Distraction, dialogue, and I don't care for it.
Right. No, it's pretty rough. I like that the way that Jeff Bridges plays the scene, though. I think Jeff Bridges is just one of those guys who, as he's talking, just things like, Tony, you can't afford to be this naive.
Yeah.
The way that he delivers stuff like that, it works so nicely. Like he has the right vibe to carry lines like that.
Yeah. I think so too. This scene in particular, and I think will continue tomorrow with, a grand revelation for Tony. And I think it's important, and it changes, for those who haven't bought into the fact that Obi is not completely above board, it changes directions for our understanding of this character.
Yeah, definitely. I don't have anything else for this minute. I mean, we're going to continue this conversation about this conversation We're having a conversation about a conversation. And we'll be
Let's
having
lock it
that.
up. Yeah,
We'll have that conversation tomorrow.
all right, let's do it.
Well, that's it for today's show, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you subscribe to the show for free at marvelmovieminute.com. Join us over in our Discord chat room and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Next Reel. And if you like what we do and you want to support us and get some cool stuff, become a patron over at thenextreel.com/Patreon. Until next time, true believers,